first volume of The Aspect is coming to an end with Chaos Risen by Mark Holloway, releasing on July the 4th. Hello everyone, welcome back to A Fictional Escapist. My name is Kris and today's video is the Chaos Risen book review. Now I will start off by saying this will contain spoilers for book 1, The Soul's Aspect, and book 2, The Soul's Instruments in the Aspect series. So if you haven't read either of those, maybe give this one a miss and come back when you are up to Chaos Risen, where it will be spoiler free for the third installment. Before we jump into the review today, make sure to check in the description box down below for links to my social media and Discord, should you want to come along for the ride. I have to say, I have absolutely loved seeing Mark Holloway grow throughout this series and take risks and have them absolutely pay off. Chaos Risen was a mesmerizing blend of character focus, fantasy horror, and a plot that really comes together in this final installment. Chaos Risen was this mesmerizing blend of character-driven story, fantasy horror elements which absolutely took off and were fantastic, and plot in this final installment of the volume 1 of The Aspect. I cannot really go into the plot without giving too much away, so I will very briefly summarize the plot of book 3, but this next paragraph will be what contains spoilers for the first 2 installments. The Aspect is broken. Kellum can no longer access the powers that used to lie between the worlds, a power he and so many others had come to rely on. To make things more dire, each night mists envelop the land, causing the dead to rise in monstrous ways, threatening everything and everyone that Kellum has held dear. Unsure of the path that he must take, it seems that Kellum is still at the center of it all. Will he become the butcher or the hero in this final installment? The Risen will come forth and taste the flesh of chaos. Long live chaos. Long live the dead. It was such a cool book. We'll get to that. I really loved what Holloway did to tie in this first volume of The Aspect. The execution of the entire series up until this point was really planned out and well done in my opinion. Book 1, and Holloway has said this himself, was an extremely character-focused book. It was fairly light in terms of as we were learning the magics and as Kellum was sort of coming of age, we had this magic school, I guess, a magic school trope where we have Kellum learning about the Aspect and what he can and can't do. Within there, we had these beautiful friendships and these character-driven story that happened in the first book. Towards the end of the first book, shit hit the fan, for lack of a better term, and we really got to see the darker elements of this story come into play and really shape what was going to happen for the rest of the series. From that, we had a much heavier and much more plot-driven book 2, which allowed us to see the magic of this world expand and really what the consequences of using that magic is. And we also got to be introduced to a bunch of new characters, which again, there was definitely some character focus on the new people, but it was much more plot heavy than the first book. In my opinion, book 3, Chaos Risen, really takes those 2 elements and pushes them together to give you a extremely character focused story from both the characters in book 1 and book 2, but it also follows through with the plot and has quite a thematic impact by the end of this book. Being a third book in the series, I won't say too much for fear of spoilers for this particular installment, but I will say that I think this is Holloway's strongest work to date and perhaps the riskiest in terms of the elements that he's chosen to interweave within the story of The Aspect. The author has really taken some creative liberties by introducing these horror elements, which in my opinion absolutely pay off. The Aspect is broken and it's scary, and it's manifesting in really odd ways. From the Risen who haunt the nights in these towns, they arise when the mists shroud the town, and they can come in these horrific monster ways. So if you do like a bit of that Monster of the Week vibe, you're going to get that in this book. And we also have this element of our main character's life force being slowly eaten away from the inside, and that was quite a slow burn and horrific experience, which was done in a really cool way. We get to experience the full horror of the townsfolk battling these monstrosities when they have no resources and no idea what to do, but they're going to give it everything they have. And we also see the devastating consequences of things like harnessing too much power too quickly without really understanding what those consequences are. If you've been around for a long time, you know it's no secret. I do love me a good horror-esque book every now and then. I like horror elements in a lot of the things that I read, whether that be psychological or body horror or quite literal just monsters going bump in the night, and I absolutely got that here, and I thought it was a really fun element that also tied the story together well. Jumping back to the characters for a second. At this point, we know Kellum and we know Ava and a couple of the other characters that have come in between. We love them, we have grown to know them quite well over the last 3 books, but I do want to mention one character in particular, which I think Holloway has outdone himself with and has really shone through. This element for this particular character that I want to talk about has been done so well and was so refreshing in a dark fantasy book. That character is Barn. We are introduced to her in book 2. She's a bit of a firecracker. She is a young girl who just wants to help in any way, shape or form and gets into a bit of mischief by doing that, but she shines here in book 3. The reason that I want to mention her and the character work that Holloway has done with this particular character is this is a young woman who has gone through loss, who has had to come out the forefront and really start piecing things together for herself, and then takes everyone else under her wing. She is, I think, in her mid-teens in this book, and at no point in this entire series is she sexualized in any way. Even though that she is operating with older gentlemen and also kids of her age, there is no mention of any sort of sexualization of this character. Now, Barn is asexual, so within the LGBTQIA+ community as well, and there are very subtle hints to that in book 3 that I found, and I did confirm with the author himself, saying that yes, she is asexual. But I just thought it was so refreshing to have a female character and at no point having that character be sexualized in any way. So if that's not a selling point to this series, I don't know what is, because very rarely do you get that in a dark fantasy tale. Moving on from the characters, I just thought that was worth mentioning. Book 3 also continued with Mark Holloway's easy-to-read prose and exceptional pacing. This story just flies off the page. It demands consumption. The story progression, coupled with lighter character moments and growth, allowed for an easy, addictive feeling read. I had trouble putting this one down, which isn't something that happens to me all that often. And I constantly thought, okay, just one more chapter. I'll just read the next chapter and see what happens to X, Y, or Z, whoever POV we were following at that time. And before I knew it, I was at the end of the book and in a ball of emotions on the ground, because this will absolutely destroy you if you're an emotional reader. Holloway writes with this magical flair that has me wanting to start the series all over again, even though I've just finished the first volume. While it does sadden me that we're not going to have another entry into the Aspect for some time, Holloway has said that this is the first volume. The Aspect is not finished, but this is volume 1, and he's going to go and work on something else before returning to the Aspect. I am really excited to see what Holloway does next. I have been so blessed with receiving art copies for both book 2 and book 3, and I'm going to request them into the future and bug Mark to be on the art team forevermore. That was Chaos Risen. That was the end of volume 1 of the Aspect. What do you think? Have you picked up anything in this series? Let me know in the comments down below. If you like the content, give it one of those. If you want to see more of it, click subscribe at your will. I'll catch you in the next video. Ciao.